So I've been working on the 60 MGA chassis, been getting all these rails put in and been doing all that off camera. But I was getting ready to start doing the front here and realized that before I put this rail in here, I don't have one for the other side. They're no longer available. My understanding is the company that was making them went out of business. Moss only has the right sides until they run out of stock, and then that's it. Probably some of the other rails will start becoming unavailable as well. So we need to make one. So today we're going to try to make the mirror image of this for the other side. Now this piece would have been made on a press brake. That's how you get such nice, clean, tight bends, and how you can get this so small, because you got really tiny dies that you can use for doing that. I used to run a press brake. I know when I see something that's been made on a press brake when it was made that way. We don't have a press brake, and likely you don't either. So we're going to show you how to make this at home if you have a leaf brake. Now this is going to be a little difficult on the leaf brake, especially with my leaf brake, because mine is an older one. It has been used quite a bit, so it's not exactly super tight anymore. And this isn't exactly set up properly. I'm not 100% sure this is where it's going to live full time, so I haven't actually got it properly leveled so it doesn't work as well as it could. But we're going to make this just a hair taller and see if we can make that work. If we can't, then we'll back up and punt, as my dad used to say. We'll make a longer flange and cut it off. This one's made out of 16 gauge. I don't have any 16 gauge around here long enough to do this with. Plus my brake is only an 18 gauge brake. Of course it'll bend short lengths of 16 gauge, no problem. But I do have 18 gauge laying here. And since it does go in right here, that's a pretty short piece, and it's not like it's back here where you're sitting and there's gonna be a lot of weight. So between this being a small piece, not carrying any real weight, and the fact that I'm gonna go with a slightly longer flange, it should be just fine out of 18 gauge, so that's what we're gonna use. So I took some measurements of this, and to make this flange a little longer, I figured I need a 2-inch strip. So I've got a piece of 18 gauge, is not very much longer than what I need. And I'll cut me off a 2-inch strip here and we'll get started. Of course, one of the tricks here is to make sure you're actually bending it left and right hand, so you don't end up with the exact same piece. But I've gone ahead and cut this thing to length, and I've cut a notch out here because this flange doesn't go full length. I'm gonna just only lay out this part right now, gonna get this bent to make sure it actually bends before we lay out the rest of it. Now, this was bent at slightly less than 3/16 of an inch, giving us a total flange of about 1/4. I'm going to bend this at 1/4 inch, so we end up with about a 5/16 flange to give me the best chance of being able to actually bend it and keep it looking pretty close. If I tried to bend this flange out, it likely won't bend. I've learned that from years of trying to bend small flanges. The heavier the material is and the smaller the flange is, the less likely it's going to happen. So when I do small flanges, I put it flange in. Got a better chance of it working that way. Like butter. Let's go finish marking this thing up so we can finish bending it. So now when we go to bend the other flange, we also obviously have one going down and one going up. Well, on a leaf brake, you're not going to be able to do that because of the hinges on the ends of the leaf brake. So we're going to bend it up, all of it as an up flange, and then flatten it and go the other way with it. But we need to cut a slot across for this, which I've got marked out here, and cut a slot in here for this to make this step. I got myself a new toy recently. These are actually pretty nice for using as cutoff wheels because they're not as much power and they don't spin as fast, which means they're safer. Less likely to shatter a disc and have one go through your safety glasses. So, good idea to use these. All right, so now let's go bend the other flange up. So then what we do here, we just flatten this flange back out. And then we're just going to have to bend this the other way, but since I can't get into the brake, we'll just have to hammer it over. And for that, I'll just use this, which is not real easy to do, but some minor adjustments, it'll be fine. Now you can do this on the edge of the table, wherever you want to do. I just happen to have that, so I use that. And then we want to bend this up a little bit, and then back down so we end up with a slight little step so it sits on top of the other one just like this does. Now we can mark out the holes. So these are captive nuts that are welded in. These are meant to be welded in basically with a welder that's like a spot welder. That's why you have these 3 nubs here on it. So when that clamps and puts pressure on there, those 3 nubs are what make contact and embed into the metal and create the weld and hold it in place. You can see it there. But we don't have that, so what we do, drill that hole so that just fits in there. And then we'll just take the grinder and just knock these 3 off. So I cut all those little bumps or nubs, whatever you want to call them, off of here. And you can put that through there, and then just take a short bolt, run it up in there to clamp it in there nice and snug. And then what you can do is just basically put a little bit of a weld, little tack weld in 3 sides, and you're good to go. So there we are, homemade left-hand side to match the right-hand side. So you too could make one of these at home if all you have is just a brake, a hammer, and some simple tools.